to begin with our disclaimer language. And it'll be with our chairman, Brent Regan.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming down. This is a KCRCC-sponsored town hall event. Our legislative committee, chaired by Jamie Haas. Jamie, in the back there, raise your hand, Jamie. There she is. Thank you. She does all the coordination, and her committee put this together and make the arrangements. Thank you to the Alder Church for allowing us to use the facility here today. And I want you to be sure that you understand, and it has been confirmed by our Attorney General, that this is a private meeting. And you're welcome to be here. You're welcome to give your questions to the legislators and so that they can respond. But we're not going to tolerate any disruptions. Anybody trying to interfere, anybody trying to break down the debate by yelling or screaming or shouting out. If you do that, you'll be asked to be quiet. If you aren't quiet, you'll be asked to leave. If you don't leave, you'll be trespassed out of the building. And that is our right, and that's to protect the free speech of everybody here. So I know you're going to be well behaved. I know we're not going to have any problems this time, but thank you very much for coming. With that, introduce Bruce Matari, who's our MC for the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. My name is Bruce Matari. I'm one of your county commissioners. And first of all, I just want to thank you all for coming out here. It's very important that we have an engaged community to understand what is happening, not only with local politics, but of course state politics, because we're watching the world change so fast, and it goes to those people who are paying attention. So thank you for coming out here. We're going to start with an invocation, and we're going to begin with Pastor Tim Remington, and then we'll do the pledge. And I just would again like to thank Pastor Remington for allowing us to use this facility. And let's begin with the invocation.
Amen. I love the fact that everybody stands. Don't even have to say it. I love it. So when I'm done praying, you will remain standing. And on the left-hand side, right back there, you'll see the American flag. On the other side of Doug Okonowitz, which I can't see on the other side of him, but a 7-foot man up there. But so let's have a word of prayer. Thank you, Father, for allowing us to do stuff like this in America, to be able to come together and be able to know who our legislators are. I ask right now, Father, that today we would ask the right questions, get the right answers. We would know where we're going in this state. It's a privilege, Lord God, to be able to invite you into everything that we're doing. We welcome you as our guest of honor. So you take the seat, Lord, and you tell us what to do, how to do it. And Lord, we just turn all of this over to you. And we praise you for who you are and what you're doing. This is the best legislation that we've had in this state for years and years. And so I thank you, Lord God, for doing that work. Now I pray, Lord God, that we will maintain the momentum, Lord God, of where we're going. We need to maintain this. We need to stay on the ball. We need to continue to pray, not to sit down again after we had great wins. And so, Lord, I pray that your will would be done in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can be seated now.
Thank you, Pastor. I'll just do a quick introduction. Okay, come on up, Dale. I think you got a name placard up there. All right, so from your left, we are going to start with, Dale Hawkins, 2nd District Representative, Senator Phil Hart, 2nd District, Representative Heather Scott, 2nd District, Senator Doug Okonowitz, 3rd District, Representative Joe Alfieri, 4th District, Representative Elaine Price, 4th District, Senator Ben Taves, 4th District, Representative Tony Wisnowski, 5th District, and Senator Carl Berkey, 5th District. And so what I'd like to do to begin with is give each of you 2 minutes, not to talk about who you are, because we already have that in this handout today, so we don't need to spend time on that. What we're going to do is we're going to start with what you want, what you hope for, your policy initiatives to be achieved this coming legislative session. So we'll start with Senator Berkey.
I guess I should have looked at what is written in here, but I think I could follow the direction and kind of let you know. Carl Bjerke, District 5 Senator, heading into my 4th year as a legislator here in Idaho. For reference, my seatmates are Tony Wisniewski and Ron Mendive. I'm on the Health and Welfare Committee in the Senate, and I'm also on the Finance Committee. And I was on several special committees during the interim. And a lot of what I'm planning for this session will have to do with supporting the work that was done on those committees, along with continued work that I'm doing to provide health care for all Idahoans. There's a lot of work to be done in that regard, and I have some legislation that's already been provided to me, things like making physical therapists, getting them on the list of being a primary. That opens up the ability for them, if you go to a physical therapist and they're working with you and they think that maybe an MRI is appropriate, they can kind of fast track things. So we lack access to medical care here in Idaho. We're like 50th in the nation for physicians to populace. So those are things that are going to be things I'll be working on again this session. Some of the committee work I did in the interim, one of them was, and we have Representative Heather Scott here as well. She was on the Child Custody Task Force. It was one of those ones that were kind of like, holy smokes, what's this all about? And I don't want to get into too much detail, but I find that the work that we did on that task force is going to open up avenues for making some changes to our statutes regarding how we deal with those things. And I have certain things that I gleaned from that committee work when it comes to child custody issues. I won't get into all the issues and problems we found while we were going through the many committee meetings for that task force, but things like presumptive 50-50, custody changes takes a lot of the fight out of the equation. States that have done that have actually had a 25% decrease in divorce rate. So I'm going to move along. My 2 minutes is up, but like I said, most of the work I'll be doing will be in support of the work that we did in the special committees during the interim.
My name is Tony Wisniewski, and I'm also in District 5, so it's mainly Post Falls, but comes up from just south of Rathdrum all the way down to the county border and everything west of Lake Coeur d'Alene. I'm going to be continuing the work that we started last year with the Parental Choice School Bill, House Bill 93, that needs to be fleshed out. That's a real important piece of legislation that was just passed. One of the other interests that I have is looking at the Uniform Commercial Code. As of 1994, the code was changed such that when you have deposits in either a bank or a savings and loan or some other financial institution, your 401k funds, for instance, you think you have total ownership of those funds. Well, the way the language is written in the code, in the event of a financial emergency like we had back in the recession of 2008, the bank or other financial institution has a superior right to claim ownership interests in those funds to keep them out of financial insolvency. So you take second position to something that you really have primary ownership interest in. One of the other things that we're going to be investigating, and I can't promise any results as far as taking action on it, is I'll use the term atmospheric aerosol dispersion. I don't want to use words that the other side claim that we are conspiracy theorists. Weather modification is real. Who's doing it, how they're doing it, how it's impacting us, what kind of materials are being used, how it's being dispersed, is a very difficult puzzle to unwind. So that's one of the other things that myself and a couple of other legislators will be working on. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I actually served on the Land Use and Housing Interim Committee, which is looking at the issue of housing affordability. For me, specifically interested in how do we make it possible for the next generation to own a house. I believe that's critical for the foundation of our society, for healthy communities, for people to have home ownership. And so I come at that question from that point of view, and we have some great legislation I think will help a lot. A lot of that is really property rights issues and deregulation. So we'll be looking at ways to make it possible for smaller houses to be built, and for them to be built more affordably. Another major issue for me is property tax. I'm the chair of the Senate Majority Caucus, and one thing our caucus can agree on, which is pretty rare that you can get even a group of Republicans to agree on one thing, but we all agree, or the majority of us agree, that property tax is a major issue that needs to be addressed. And so I'll be looking to support legislation that would increase the homeowners exemption or otherwise lower the property taxes specifically for homeowners. Another area of focus for me is going to be, and it's likely they'll work with Representative Price on this, is trying to put parents in the driver's seat dealing with social media. We need parents to be able to make the decision whether or not their children should have access to social media and better able to monitor that. And right now, a child can go and open an account without their parents' knowledge or permission, and I think that's a major problem. I think it's important to, and maybe you know this, but where we actually get a lot of the bills that we run during session is actually from you. So I have about 5 other bills that are from constituents who have brought bills to me, and so definitely reach out to us. We're citizen legislators and we're representing you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine Price, District 4. I'm going into my 4th year as well, so end of second term. I do not have a lot of legislation on my plate because I joined the Appropriations Committee last year. I spent a lot of time learning that, and this year I'm hoping to maybe refine that a little bit and push back on some of our appropriation bills. I just printed out this morning a revenue report, and revenues are coming in. We have 2 issues. We overproject our revenues and we spend to that overprojection. So if we overproject and we don't hit those numbers, then our spending is going to be over as well. So we're going to have to tighten our belts. This year, the governor did do a 3% hold. And so we're going to have that facing our joint appropriations and finance committee this year. So the only bill that I plan on running is, well, except for the one with Senator Taves, of course, protecting children is important, is the repeal of the Blaine Amendment. And I'm sure not a lot of people understand the Blaine Amendment, but the Blaine Amendment was a bigoted amendment that was, in my opinion, forced on the states by a congressman. And it refuses, and Idaho's is one of the most broad Blaine amendments in the country, and it refuses any tax dollars in aid of any religious or sect. So it was based on keeping the Catholics out of taxpayer funds for schools. And that's what it was when it first got in. So that's what I'm looking at doing.
Good morning. I'm Joe Alfieri from District 4 with my compatriots here, and I serve on the local government committee and state affairs. I'm the vice chair of judiciary rules and administration, and I'm looking at a number of bills, but one of my focuses, of course, is on voting rights and voting issues, and one of the things that concerns me is campaign finance and the amount of outside money that's coming into the state to oppose local candidates. So I'm looking at laws to restrict the amount of money that comes from outside the state. I think, realistically, I think you need to be a resident of the state to contribute to a campaign. It's just wrong to have thousands, tens of thousands of dollars coming in from Texas and Florida and things like that. So I'm also going to, once again, make a run at the absentee ballot issue. I have been concerned for years about the use of absentee ballots from people who are otherwise able to get to the polling station. If you can go to Walmart, you can get out and you can vote. You can participate in our republic, and I think that's critical. Another issue that I'm looking at is the way we select judges and the way we approve judges and the way we evaluate their performance over the years. So I've got some legislation on that as well. I want to divert just for a moment, take an extra 30 seconds and talk about something that is a great concern of mine. And that is the division among the Republicans in this area. I am very upset about the infighting that is going on and what we are doing to our party. And we really need to put a stop to this. This is just the back and forth and the bickering that is going on locally is going to destroy us. And we have an opportunity to continue to advance freedom and secure the future of our children. And we are going to, frankly, piss it away unless we do something about it. I'm tired. We should stop this.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name's Doug O'Conowitz, Legislative District 3. Like everybody, I've got a lot that I'm considering. I suppose one of the most important issues that I'm investigating right now has to do with the way cities are budgeting. In 2025, the city of Post Falls raised taxes 7%, 3% maximum, and when the legislature imposes a maximum amount a city can raise taxes, it's a maximum. It doesn't say, please go raise taxes 3%. It's a cap. So they raised it the entire 3%, they took 4% and forward on. So it was a huge tax increase for the city of Post Falls. Then they proceeded to put in the newspaper that it was the legislature's fault and that we were going to be reducing their funding for transportation and sales tax distributions. In actuality, they got more money from both of those revenue streams, not less. So I asked them to return the tax that they raised. You didn't need it. You thought you were going to need it. You didn't need it. They refused to do that. Well, this tipped off a whole series of events for me in my research and working with that city and then also with the Association of Cities, which is basically a lobbying entity that is, well, it's governed by city mayors. So it's run by cities, it's paid for by cities, and then they come down and they lobby us and all that. During those discussions, what we found is that the Association of Cities provides a budget manual to every city, and they suggest underestimating how much revenue they're going to receive from the state, overestimating their expenses, so they always have extra money. I don't think that's the right way to run government. I don't think it's appropriate. I've got Legislative Services is helping me research every city in the state. We're focusing particularly in Kootenai County to begin with, and not just Post Falls. And I know we've had a change in leadership in Post Falls, and hopefully that will solve many of the problems there, and I'm hopeful that that's the case. But what's become very apparent is that we've got, and it's not news to most folks, but we've got some very real problems on the way cities are functioning, and particularly the relationship between state government and the cities. It feels very much like they hide the ball from us, and we need to improve that. It'd be great if we could do it collaboratively, but if not, we're going to try and get that done anyway. So thanks.
Hello, I'm Heather Scott, District 2, which is Clearwater, Benawash, Shoshone, Bonner, and Kootenai County. So a big area. I've been on a couple different interim committees, which has brought a lot of legislation to my mind that I'm going to run. So I'm on the DOGE committee for the state, where we've looked into ways of consolidating agencies and cutting waste. There's a portal where people can put in ideas or whistleblowers, and so that's brought a lot of great ideas up. But the other committee, as was mentioned, I'm on is the Family and Child Task Force, which is dealing with our family courts. We really need some judicial reform, I think. We need some clarity in our laws. We are placing children in homes of drug traffickers, convicted drug traffickers and convicted pedophiles, and they're getting full custody. And we're violating other parents' parental rights for hearsay. And so there's a lot of issues within that this has brought to our attention. It's this huge mess. So I don't know where that's going to end, but that's some stuff I'm working on. I'm also working on programmable money, making that illegal in our state. It is how you will be tracked with your digital identity. It is the final link to digital ID. So I'm working on that. I've got a bill to stop foreign money coming in for initiatives into our state, and an all-out war on the schools. Some of the nonsense that's going on in our schools with the deviant behaviors of staff. That's, if you follow my Twitter, you've probably seen a little bit of that. And a lot of state sovereignty bills. Sovereignty is a big thing if we cannot stand up to things. The one last thing I'll share is I'm the co-chair of the Idaho Freedom Caucus. What we plan to continue to do is build a structure that when conservatives get in there, there's something to kind of help them along, so it's easier to keep up with the machine and with Boise. And it's, most everyone up here is part of that. We only share our public members, so if they're private, I can't say, but you're doing good in North Idaho. I can't say that about the rest of the state, but you've got a great team.
Hi, I'm Senator Phil Hart from Legislative District 2. Legislative District 2's boundary is actually just a half mile east of here at the stoplight. We have 16th Street and then all the rural area kind of east of here. Anyways, I serve on the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, and 2 years ago we used a different method of budgeting. We broke the budgets for each agency down into what we call a maintenance budget and an enhancement budget. And the maintenance budget was sort of the minimum amount of money that agency needed to function, and the enhancement budget was just what it means. It was what enhancements do they want. And the first year we did that, there was huge battles. I mean, there were daily battles with sort of the establishment not wanting to do it that way, because it put sunshine on the parts of the budget that were maybe more easy to cut. So the method survived that year. I think we made some improvements to it last year. And so one of my goals is to just keep that method in place as a member of the JFAC committee. And I've been doing some asking around with other legislators I know around the country. And from what I've heard, Idaho's the only state in the nation that does that. So it's provided a mechanism for us to look at the budget more closely and not increase spending so much. So we did hear a presentation this summer in JFAC, and when you factor in population growth, the state has doubled in population in about, I think, 25 or 30 years. If you factor population growth in and inflation, our spending has been static, on a per capita basis. So that's something I think we can be proud of. Another thing I want to mention is most of the legislation down in Boise is written by executive agencies and lobbyists. North Idaho people are an exception to that rule. We're telling you what Mount Learning bills we're working on. We're probably each working on 5 or 10 different issues. So I'll just mention one more that I'm going to work on, and it's the money issue. I am very concerned about how the federal government, through the Federal Reserve Bank, has flooded the economy with money, has driven asset prices up. It's a natural consequence of a money system that's not hinged anything. Money is created when it's borrowed into existence, so therefore all money is debt. It's really not money, it's anti-money. And the consequences of that is the next generation can't afford to buy a house. They might not want to get married and have kids, and I think our whole society is threatened by this. So this is a federal issue because we gave the federal government the ability to coin money. States can't coin money, but there's things we can do at the state level to encourage a transformation back to an asset-based money system, which would control inflation.
Thank you, Senator Hart.
So that's one issue I'm working on. There's probably 9 more. I'm going to turn it over to Dale Hawkins.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. You know, we were all here in the spring, and I don't know how many of you were here then, so my strategic plan hasn't changed much from then. But there is something that people, I don't think that we all realize, and that is, you know, as well as the federal government printing money in excess and flooding our country with money, which isn't money at all, the other thing they've done is flood our country with people who don't belong here. So in addition to this huge economic crisis we're suffering just from the overprinting of money and inflation, there's all kinds of numbers out there when you watch the TV. I went to an event this year put on by FAIR. It's an organization that tracks immigration. We went down to the Texas border, which is now closed. And I stood at the area there where you used to watch the videos of thousands of people there, just so you get a little bit of glimpse into this. And this is all to lead up to say that I've got quite a few bills that are dealing with illegal immigration in Idaho. And you go down there and you talk to the people that were in charge on the ground, the Border Patrol folks, and they were very resentful over the last 4 years. That area that they always filmed under the bridge there was designed to handle about 100 people a day. They were handling 1,000 people a shift, 3 shifts a day. And the Mayorkas contingency was calling them continually and saying, figure out how to do more. And this is just one section of that border, mind you. So even though there's all kinds of numbers tossed around on TV, when we went to this event and there was a couple of us there, the real numbers for the United States is, in the soft numbers, 40 million. So they say 40 to 50 million. Just like in Idaho, there was a study done by a certain university that I don't trust, and they said there was like 30-something thousand in the state of Idaho. We figured about 80,000. So just so you get a grasp of that, that's homes not available for your kids. That's seats in schools not available for your kids. And this is what I intend to address this year. And bring back some stuff we had last year and try to get through. Saying peace.
You can interpret it that way, but your time is up. Hey, thank you all very much. Let's just jump right into it. Representative Alfieri, you talked about election integrity. So there's a couple questions that were handed up here. One is specifically to you. So I'd like you to just kind of touch on your thoughts on this particular question, and then what you think is the right approach for election integrity moving forward. Obviously, if we don't have elections that we can count on, our constitutional republic starts to whittle away a lot faster. So what are your thoughts on excuse-only absentee ballots?
Excuse-only absentee ballots. What do you mean by excuse-only absentee ballots?
That's a good question. I presume that means that you just can't submit an absentee ballot because you feel like it, but then you have to have a legitimate reason.
No, you must
why
have a
you-
legitimate. So the bill I proposed last year and the year before that was that you had to have a legitimate excuse. And the legitimate excuse in my mind, and I think most people would agree with this, is that if you are in a position where you're not physically able to attend the election, you can get an absentee ballot. And an example of that would be if you're in the military and you're deployed overseas, obviously you need an absentee ballot. If you are in a nursing home and physically incapable of getting to the election on election day, you are legitimately qualified for an absentee ballot. An absentee ballot used as convenience is the wrong thing. We need to participate in our republic. We're only asking once a year to come out and do something, and to vote for the people that represent you. I think it's as simple as that. I don't see that there should be an issue for it. Now there are some caveats to this, and one of them is that there are some areas in our state where you are 200 or 300 or 400 miles away from a polling location. Well, an absentee ballot might be legitimate there, and that is actually in statute. So I don't have a problem with that. But if you can go to Walmart, you can vote. Simple as that. If you can take the time to go to Walmart, Costco, or Super One, you want to be able to get out once a year or twice a year with primaries and vote. It's important. If you care about the future of what we're doing here, you need to do that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to add to that? It's definitely in the absentee vote. That is where the problem is. I don't believe it's in the machines as much unless it's a full-blown electronic machine as far as the counting. And I know there might be a difference here. But the absentee ballot, because that's what's happening in other states, voter registration, they send out multiple ballots to the same address. People capture the ballots, people pay for the ballots on the street, and then they fill them out and then submit them later.
Bruce,
Yes.
make a comment.
Yes, absolutely.
There's one other issue with the absentee ballots I think is of concern, and that's the elections department doesn't have chain of custody.
Yes.
It runs through the mail.
Yes.
So I think that's a huge problem with absentee ballots.
Yeah, I don't think that's working properly. Is it off? All right, good. Okay.
Let me comment on what Senator Hart said, because chain of custody is critical. And so just to understand, when you go to your polling location, you are testifying in front of someone that you are who you claim to be, and you're providing identification. Yes. You lose that completely when that goes in the mail, because we don't know in that absentee ballot who's actually filled out the ballot. Could be you, could be somebody else. So maybe your ballot was stolen, or maybe you're infirm and your ballot is actually being filled out by a relative who may not have the same political ideas that you do. So chain of custody is absolutely critical, and that's one of the other. Thank you for mentioning that, Senator Hart. That's one of the other reasons why absentee ballots need to be eliminated as much as possible.
Thank you. All right, this one is for Representative Wisnowski. You mentioned, I cannot remember the exact verbiage you used for cloud seeding and contrails, but I have two questions here where people are wondering, do you plan on introducing the bill this legislative session? And maybe even if you could elaborate on some of the challenges I've had, because you said it's been very difficult to try to figure out what's actually happening.
Thank you for the question. First of all, there is already some legislation on the books that regulate cloud seeding. Now, to differentiate between aerosol dispersion and cloud seeding is a form of weather modification. It's used in the southern part of the state primarily to increase the snowpack in the mountains to provide more water for irrigation primarily and for power generation. So Idaho Power is very keen on doing this. They're one of the primary users of cloud seeding.
Do we know if that even works?
There have been studies that claim it works. I don't know how you do a controlled experiment by introducing nucleation sites like silver iodide into the air, allow the precipitation to happen that would not have otherwise happened. I don't know how you go about proving that from a scientific standpoint. From a theoretical standpoint, it makes sense. Now, as far as introducing legislation, in order to legislate something, you have to have some knowledge of what is happening, whether it's good or bad, whether you're going to support it or oppose it. And right now, we're still in the investigative phase, so there is no concrete legislation that's being proposed at this time. Sorry to disappoint a lot of you folks, but that's just the nature of it. Now, the fact that weather modification is happening, we've known going back decades. For instance, in Vietnam, there were activities there to increase rainfall, to slow down the Viet Cong from moving material and troops in Vietnam. We have also seen not weather modification per se, but a drastic use of chemicals, Agent Orange, to defoliate some jungle areas to eliminate the cover that the Viet Cong had against our troops. So we know that there is certainly a capability, and it has been used in the past, and there are international treaties on weather modification. So you can't have a treaty to control something and to limit something that doesn't already exist. So, like I said, it's very difficult to peel back all the layers to find out where this is coming from, what the alleged motivation is to weather modification, primarily, I believe, to reduce the solar radiation, reduce the global warming, but don't know what the real motivation is and where it's coming from.
Okay, and there's one other question here, and I don't know the veracity here, but would you consider running a bill to repeal HB 266, cloud seeding liability? Can't tell if that's fire or not. No third-party oversight, costing taxpayers 10 to 15 million annually, and now funding Utah's program. Are you familiar with any of this kind of stuff? Is there something that stands out?
I know that there is some cloud seeding going on in southern Idaho, and I don't know that it's costing the taxpayers. So without knowing more information on that, I can't comment.
Fair enough.
I'll just add real quick, we did add some immunity for that. I voted against, it's been like 5 years ago. So yeah, that would be a good thing to do, is repeal their immunity.
Thank you, Representative Scott. This question is addressed to Senator Berkey and Representative Hawkins. Now that the Federal Department of Education is being dismantled, are there any areas that the state will have to address? And if neither of you want to address that, or it's not in your purview, maybe we can get someone else to address it. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, a federal agency that contributed nothing but nightmare to the state is being dismantled. I know that there are many who will claim that we will be resource short, but I don't think that'll be the case. That will be the crop. Education has been flat in attendance in Idaho, and yet we gave an extra $400 million, and the cry is still not enough because they want all your money. And so I don't think it will cause anything that we need to worry about other than, hey, there's less intrusion.
Senator Berkey.
I'll just say real quickly, from what I've heard, Superintendent Critchfield says there won't be any impact. I'm not on an education committee. This is not 100% in my wheelhouse, but I agree with Representative Hawkins that I think the less intrusion at a federal level is what we're all asking for. You know, we want state sovereignty. We want to control the education of our children. And the more we can keep the federal government out of our business, the better. Like I said, I'm not on education. I'm on the finance committee. I could talk about money if you want to be more about that, but I'll pass it off to anybody else who wants to talk about the education stuff.
Thank you. This one is really more a follow-up from previous sessions. what, town halls here. Convention of States, is there any update on the status of that? Anyone want to speak to that?
No.
Have a lot of extra time.
Okay, I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. I just got a personal invite from DeSantis for the balanced budget amendment. He's inviting people from Idaho to come to Florida in December. Very tempting, probably not real good. Stay at the Four Seasons Hotel, all paid for. This December, the first week of December. I was so tempted, and I begged my husband, and he's just like, "What are you thinking?" Not that I would ever do that, but I think they're going to push it again. The balanced budget amendment. It comes up every year. It's not going away. So.
I got that invite too. I said no. Senator Taves did as well. But while I'm thinking about it, did this once a year or two ago. By a show of hands, we asked the crowd how many of you thought we should have a convention of states and pass a balanced budget amendment, and how many of you thought we shouldn't. So let's start with those who think we should. Raise your hands if you think we should. I count half of them. All right, and then those who don't think we should, no convention of states? Okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Anybody else on that? No? I'd like to comment. Sure, Senator Martin.
So Governor DeSantis came to Idaho in the spring when we were still in session and was pushing the balanced budget amendment. And I asked him a question, and I asked him, how can you balance the budget when we create all money through the debt process? Debt needs to be serviced with an interest payment, so every year you need to create more money to service the existing debt. You can't balance the budget at the federal level as long as we have the money system we have. So it's a big waste of time, I think, to push this balanced budget amendment unless we change our money system.
Thank you. All right, now this next question is for anyone who would like to address it. We hear of President Trump reversing regulations that have kept our national minerals locked up. Will our state legislators have to weigh in or vote on this in order to free up the access to these precious treasures?
So I don't know that we all understand, even though that many of these agencies have been pushed back. I mean, even the EPA with the Saget decision up north in Idaho, that was an Idaho decision here, and with the Chevron deference decision, what we're seeing is the lower levels of the agencies are still holding things up. I'm part of the Committee on Federalism. Senator Risch was there, and we had the discussion, what's it going to take for us to open this ground up? Because most of it's 63% of Idaho is controlled by the Fed because they lay claim to land that should belong to us, but they still have the say. So it's going to take congressional movement for this to go on, but we're still having problems statewide. We have developers outside of the Boise area. They're trying to build houses, and the NEPA studies, and is this a wetland, and is this? You talk about things that raise the price of homes. This contributes greatly to that. So we need to figure out a way to push. I don't know what we do to do that, but we're trying to get the answers, and that's some of the stuff we looked at this summer.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. In March of this year, President Trump signed an executive order directing his agencies to fast-track mineral exploration and development of minerals here in this country. According to reports, there is $150 trillion worth of untapped minerals here in the United States. And so President Trump recognizes that a lot of these critical minerals are being controlled by China. I went to a state GOP meeting 2 or 3 years ago in the summertime, and one of the geologists presented a list of the 30 top critical minerals. And of those, the United States only has access to maybe 2 or 3, And the majority of those are either controlled directly by China through their mineral exploration in China and Asia or in South America, or outright ownership of mining companies elsewhere in the world, or even in some cases, more importantly, the processing of those minerals. Here in the United States, we're not allowed to process a lot of those minerals. We have to ship ore up to British Columbia because of very strict environmental regulations. And our enemies, the Communist Chinese Party, has no sense of environmental controls, and they're building coal plants 1 a week. They process these minerals, dump the residue, have no consideration for the environmental impact, so we're at a tremendous disadvantage. So, as I said, here in Idaho, we have rich mineral deposits that need to be opened up. One of them was Perpetua Mines, which I believe a year or two ago, the military gave a $40 million grant to develop, because it has antimony, which is used in ammunitions. We will see more and more development here in the state. The Environmental Protection Agency has been directed to make sure that the environment is protected, but not to drag their feet on issuing permits for exploration. In some cases, some of these mining companies here in Idaho that we're familiar with have taken 26 years to get a permit to turn the first shovel of dirt to process ore for gold or silver or copper. Another thing that the Trump administration has done is to add certain minerals to the critical materials list. So now silver is on the list. There's been a race for gold and silver, primarily gold, by foreign nations to stockpile in their national banks, their central banks, to bolster up their economies and their currencies. We have been talking, several other people have been talking about how our money supply has been increased. It is not a money supply, it's a currency supply. It's a fake dollar that's printed on paper that has very little value anymore. The value of goods has not gone up. It's the number of fake Federal Reserve notes that you need to purchase those things. Let me give an example. If you have a silver dollar now, that represents 9 cents a gallon gasoline with the price of silver. That is legal currency here in the United States, and we stopped minting silver coins back in 1965 and then went completely off the gold standard in 1971. We have seen a 100-fold increase in the number of dollars you need to purchase things. Let me give you one more example and I'll get off the mic. Before the founding of the Federal Reserve in 1913, here in Kootenai County, you could buy 1 acre of good farmland for $30. Now you go to your local home improvement center and you get 1 cubic yard of dirt for $30. That is what has happened. We've seen a 100-fold deterioration of our currency, not our money. Money still has value. We need to get back to sound money, as Senator Hart has indicated. Thank you.
Bruce, if I may, really quick, what I'd like to ask the folks is, so on this issue of mining in the state, one of the things I didn't get to is the fact that those lower levels of the federal government are still hampering things so that you're affected negatively, so everyone walks away saying, Orange Man bad. So he's done these orders from the top, it's not getting to the bottom. What all of us need to do is write our congressional representatives and ask them, what the heck is going on? Make this happen, please, because there's enough wealth on the ground in Idaho to eliminate property and income tax.
Thank you. This next one has to do more with a local issue. I don't know how much of an issue it is throughout the state, but it's an issue that actually is controlled by the state, and it has to do with the Spokane River. Recently, the Idaho Department of Lands approved an additional 223 new docks and boat slips on the Spokane River And essentially, IDL said that the applicants met the current requirements and laws that are written therefore. There is nothing they can do but approve these. Are there any legislators that might be working on some ideas to help local communities have a little more say over that? Because we already know that the river is congested as it is. As a local elected official, I'm kind of surprised we have the county officials have the authority to write ordinance for the river, but we don't have the ability to set limits on how many boats, slips, and docks can be put in there. I was just curious if this is an issue for any of the legislators that you've seen in other parts of the state, where the state actually can dictate what happens at the local level in a way that doesn't seem correct with respect to what the community wants to see. Okay.
I think this is one that usually Representative Barbieri weighs in on, so since he's not here, unfortunately, we don't have his wisdom to lean on. But this goes back to what Senator Taves said at the beginning. If there's an issue that you would like to see addressed, please come to us, and let's see if we can help you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Representative Scott, you talked about this a little bit. This question is actually for Senator Taves and Senator Hart. HB 339 gave the Secretary of State authority to collect unlimited personal data of Idaho voters. It also gave authority to share this information with private corporations. This data possibly could be used or abused. What can be done to limit data collection and sharing? It's authorized by House Bill 339. Are you familiar with that bill?
I can speak to that just briefly. I honestly would have to go back and read that bill to know all the ramifications. I do know that I had the same concerns during session. I believe it went through my committee, and I had it actually pulled from the agenda so that we could put some safeguards. And I'm certainly willing to look at further safeguards, but we did put some safeguards into place. We want to protect people's private data. There's obviously a place where the Secretary of State has to have a certain amount of information for the sake of election integrity. And so that's a balancing act there, but data has to be protected, and I'm happy to look at legislation to make sure that we keep your personal information safe.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to make a comment. The legislature needs to work like a partnership with the people of Idaho. So as legislators, when you get elected, you get a laptop, you get an email address, you get a business card and letterhead. There's no assistant, there's no bricks and mortar office. And we have about, each one of us is gonna vote on about 650 bills a session. There would be about 800 to 1,000 bills sort of in the system each session. And this was one that we needed to know more about, and we didn't realize that there was this power given to the Secretary of State's office to collect data. So we found out about it sort of after the fact. But I know that there's some people that are really focused on this, and if we could have good communication to alert us as what's going on, that would give us a more substantial position to push back. So we need to revisit this issue, and the Secretary of State should only have the information it needs to qualify voters, nothing more and nothing less. And it should be your private information.
Yes.
And I know we're going to see some bills that are going to address artificial intelligence, which is going to copyright your personal information so that it belongs to you and it can't be sold without your permission.
Yeah, that's actually a huge deal, because that's what AI's entire premise is on, is using other people's information to give that back to you when you're using it. So I hope that this year we can actually get some meaningful legislation passed. Representative Alfaro.
Can I weigh in on this?
Yes.
Let me read the statement of purpose of this bill. It's the intent of the legislature that only eligible citizens may vote in the United States of America. Additionally, it is the intent of the legislature that the Secretary of State must strive to maintain the accuracy and integrity of the Idaho's statewide registration systems, ensure that only eligible Idaho voters are registered to vote in Idaho, and cooperate with other government entities to prevent and fight against voter fraud in the United States. This legislation requires the Secretary of State to request information from agencies and government entities to carry out the intent of the legislature. So this bill is supposed to clean up the voter rolls. It's to compare data from various agencies to make sure that the people that are registered to vote are legitimately allowed to vote. I don't see a problem with this. This bill passed the House on a 64 to 5 to 1 vote. I don't have the Senate number right here, but I voted for it, and I think it's a good bill, and I don't have a problem with this at all.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll just add one thing. I do remember when the concern was brought to me, I believe that the Heritage Foundation had legislation that was very similar, if not exactly the same as this, and I ran it past them as well because I wanted to make sure that we didn't put any people's private information in jeopardy. And they came back saying that they thought it was great the way it was, and yet we still put some safeguards on it.
Now, we've touched on AI a little bit. One of the backbone components to AI is the data centers. And a lot of people in this community don't really want to see a data center here. Is there any discussions down in Boise about addressing data centers? The federal government sees AI as an initiative. Would anyone like to speak to that? Representative Scott.
So we have a lot, I think we have nine data centers in our state. We've given them all tax breaks, which is why our electric is going up so high. Our electric bills are correlated, the increase of our electrics, there's a correlation between that and the data centers. And unfortunately, we gave them tax credits. I've heard talk last year about removing those tax credits to, you know, they get sold to the legislatures, hey, we're bringing business into the state. I don't think sometimes we're on top of things. I mean, there's agendas that come from outside the state that we might not catch until it's too late. There is a movement across the nation right now waking up to these data centers and what they're doing and how they're sharing data, and I think you're going to see something pushing back on that. Now, I did just look at the state has an AI plan. They have some agency now they have their own AI plan and what they're planning to do. And their goal was to not get rid of any employees or replace them, which I found interesting because that's kind of would be maybe a good thing to get rid of some of our employees with AI. But I think they're going to end up using it to increase the size of government. So it's definitely something we'll be looking at this year in environment, energy, and technology. And some of those bills, the problem with AI, it's got so big, so quick, that it's spread out among the committees. So there's just not, it should go through environment. All the AI bills should go through environment, but they're spread out through other committees. And so nobody's got a good handle over all. And it's getting piece here, a piece here. And so, and it's on steroids because if you go read what's coming with Elon Musk, January 26th, we're never going to keep up. So we need to be on top of it, for sure.
Go ahead.
I'll weigh in real quick. I just went to a conference and there is a feel across the country that we're in a competition with China and who gets to, there's different levels of AI. We're at the first level. The next level is AGI, the level after that is ASI. So we're in a race against China to get to ASI, which is your super AI, which is your, in my opinion, scary movies of robots taking over the world. So there is a push for data centers because that's what is required for AI. And everybody has AI already, So in order to get the bigger, better one of these, you know, or anything, the push is for data centers. So we need to hear from our constituents on your, obviously we've heard a little bit, your feelings of data centers, but if it doesn't happen in North Idaho, I have a feeling it's gonna happen in Southern Idaho.
Yes, Senator.
Yeah, Bruce, you remember the criminal reentry center issue some years ago?
Yes.
The way that we were able to tackle that is through local land use ordinance changes. So if that was something that our constituents, your constituents cared about, that's certainly something within the purview of the county and the cities to put in ordinances in their land use and give themselves the opportunity to accept or deny applications for that use. So it's not something that's can only be handled by the legislature. In fact, you already probably have a position to deal with it locally and maybe through your association of counties.
We are, and it generally begins with the comp plan and then working down from there on those kinds of things, developing an ordinance and so forth. Continuing on this AI side of things, because it's being used for everything. And Representative Scott, you kind of talked a little bit about digital currency, I think, you mentioned that, and AI. And I don't know, is anyone up here familiar with the concept of algorithmic pricing? Yes, dynamic pricing, meaning that the price is constantly changing based upon demand. Now, it's not, just real quick, it's not unusual for airlines to use it, right? To sell seats and things like that. The question is whether or not other factors
Yes.
besides supply and demand. Go ahead.
Let me give you an example. In a total digital identification system where all of your data, your bank data, your health data, your educational background, your occupation, which is something that already exists in countries like China. We have the ESG scores, environmental, social, and governance scores. So if you are not of a favored political organization, you get demerits for that. If you're not socially aware of certain things, you get demerits for that. And these scores can actually be used by the government to restrict where you can go to get educated, where you can travel, where you can own property. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. There is no such thing as ownership of property in a communist country. Where you can rent facilities to live, how much you can travel, whether or not you can leave the country. So this already exists, and it's a model that the World Economic Forum would like to see here. What I'm getting at is if you have total digital ID and that information is shareable, and the specific question is dynamic pricing. How many of you have seen the movie Minority Report? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yamamoto. How did you like that shirt you purchased last week? That was done with a retinal scan in a shopping mall in front of the store where Mr. Yamamoto purchased something. With digital ID, an organization, a store, an airline, car store knows your income, knows your spending habits, knows how much you might be able to afford for a certain item that you're thinking about purchasing, and adjust the price to target you and your ability to pay, as opposed to someone else who makes less money than you. That is what is known as dynamic pricing, and that's something that we need to make sure that we don't have. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that digital ID and CBDC is not allowed here in this state.
Yeah, and just but I just want to add one thing, and I can't believe I'm even saying this, but New York actually passed a pricing disclosure act, an algorithmic pricing disclosure act, so their constituents would see whether or not that was being used on them. Go ahead, Representative
So
Scott.
I'm just going to tag on to what he said. If you go to my last Substack, Red Heather Scott Substack, I just did one on programmable money. And that is where your money is, it's literally tells you, it can turn it off, it can turn it on. Like what happened to the Canadian truckers with their things, that's what's coming. And it's already in the United States. The old name was CBDC, but now they're calling it programmable money. But you should definitely read that Substack and be aware of this, because with digital money or programmable money, and they have to do it through digital money and a digital ID, it's complete control. It's what's going on in China, and we know in end times it's what's coming. So if you look from end times and look back, that's where we're headed. So we need to fight that everywhere we can from Idaho, so we're the last to implement it.
Thank you. Representative Price.
Good way to fight it is use cash. And we have some laws on the books on using cash. The government can't say you can't pay with cash, but I think we need to expand those a little bit.
Go ahead.
Just to add to that, we did, actually, Representative Scott and I sponsored a bill that forced the state to take cash. But I had a recent situation where a constituent reached out and they have a similar issue with the cities requiring no cash, they would only allow credit cards or checks. So I think we do need to expand it, and I think it's really important.
Well, and I'll just add real quick, the colleges are so woke, I'll say, where they're required to accept cash. So what they're telling people, they'll wait in line and they'll say, oh, you have to go take your cash to this machine and put it on a card and then come up and pay with the card. So we've got to fix that. It's just a work, they always find workarounds for our bills, so.
Go ahead.
A similar subject, we passed S 1027 last session, was a debanking bill that doesn't allow our banks to do, debank based on a social credit score or something like that. So I think that's really important.
Good. Well, there's no question about it. I mean, this subject has a little bit of a pessimistic tone to it. For me personally, I sleep well at night knowing that you are up there fighting for us to make sure that we can maintain the with that said, let's move on to something a little more fun. Does anyone on the panel have an interest in replacing the state income tax and/or property tax with an increase in the sales tax? Who would like to start this?
I wasn't, I didn't say I would speak, but she handed me the mic. In 2010, when I was a House member, I did run a bill. It was House Bill 454, which would eliminate the personal income tax and keep the corporate income tax and raise the sales tax by about 2.5 cents. So that bill's been drafted, and I'm actually working with another senator on trying to bring that back. But there's another concept out there that's called the Figge tax, named after a Professor Figge from the University of Wisconsin. And he did a study and showed that if you taxed money moving through the banking system at 0.2%, that's 20 cents for every $100, you could pay for federal, state, and county government. So that's something that I'm looking at. That's a pretty heavy lift, but I don't know if I'll run a bill this session to try to do that, but I am working on that subject.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just quickly comment on that. I love the idea. I started talking about it right after I got elected, and somebody who had many, many years of experience in watching the legislature work told me that actually the original sales tax, there was no sales tax at one point, the original sales tax in Idaho was actually levied to get rid of property tax or lower property tax. And look where we're at now. So I hate to rain on the parade, but there has to be some way. I think it would probably take a constitutional amendment to make sure that we don't grow one area and then the next one, the one that it took care of, comes back. And then that just causes constant growth of government, which we have to stop.
So I've said it in many circles that I'm completely for an increase in consumption tax to replace property tax. One of the arguments, and I don't want to scare the county commissioner in the room, but one of the arguments is that, well, that'll just be too much work. But we actually already have that. The system is completely in place today. because we collect from sales tax and counties get distribution from it. So we could do it. I don't remember what the exact figure is. We'd be looking at like 10% or something on sales tax. But the reason I say this is because consumption tax is the most moral tax on the planet.
Yeah.
It's the one that you choose
Yes.
to use.
Exactly.
Your property is not held hostage by the state or local government. So if you spend a lot, you'll pay more. If you spend little, you'll pay less.
Right.
The difference is everybody pays.
Mhm.
And I don't know that there's a stomach for it in the legislature, but I would love to see stuff move forward. I know right now we have a Speaker of the House who is on a mission to eliminate income tax. That's what he would like to do. But I see property tax I just, not to wander, I'm in the middle of a book called The Naked Communist. Anybody ever heard of that? It's the story of Karl Marx and how this stuff all started. You know, one of their primary goals was state control of all land. Well, with property tax, what do we have? We have, just like it was mentioned earlier, we rent the home we live in, even if you've paid it off. So I believe that maybe shifting to a sales tax or a
Yes.
piggy tax would be a much better option.
I agree with you, Representative Hawkins, in the sense that, having to have to charge property tax, in essence, means you don't own your property outright. Because if you don't pay, you risk losing your property. Correct. And so there's a morality component to that. One thing, though, that I think at least should be addressed is the fact that sales tax is an economic-based driven tax. Good economies, you get more sales tax. Bad economies, not so much. It's very difficult to manage a budget when your revenues are going up and down so much. Wild swings. So it is one of the counter arguments to that. I'm not supporting it, I'm just saying that
That's why you get the big bucks to learn how to do that.
I just want to point out, I don't know if people have heard the concern about our revenues being down, but the biggest contributor to our revenues being down as a state is corporate income tax is down by 31.2% from October of last year. So it's not sales tax that is down, it's corporate income tax that is down.
Well, sales tax actually is a little bit down
It's down.
from our distribution to the county, so.
Why is that? Why is the corporate sales tax down?
I don't have the answer for that right off the top of my head, but we did do, didn't we lower corporate income tax?
Yes.
Into that bill?
So it was lowered. Go ahead, Senator James.
Yeah, there's another component which has to do with corporations in anticipation of us adopting the results of the big beautiful bill. Though they're actually paying lower taxes because there are ramifications that come through to the state level if we adopt all of what came through in the big beautiful bill. So that's a component of it for sure.
Thank you. Senator Berkey, I feel like we're leaving you out here. I have a question for you, but I'm not so sure it's a question that where introducing a bill would begin with you or in your chamber. Will you introduce a bill to allow a hotel room tax or a resort style tax? I think that actually would have to start in the house, any kind of taxation. But is it something that you would support?
It makes sense.
Well, I don't feel left out. We sit up here sometimes and we go, I can respond to that, and I can respond to that, and I can respond to that. And sometimes it's better just not to respond and let the folks that want to respond. This is an interesting question. We're talking about taxes here, and we've been told by our tax commission here in Idaho that we have a pretty kind of level tax. We tax all these things. And it's by design, right? And like Senator Tate said, if you do something here, it has to change over here, and we can talk about tax all day, but in reality, it's what do the people want? I came from a jurisdiction that a big part of the city was operated on transient occupant use through hotel taxes. And it was a big thing every year for the government officials when we sat around and tried to figure out the budget. And that was a huge indicator for us. What was the level of occupancy rate in the city, and what drove that, and what economic upturns and downturns were going to have the greatest effect on whether we have 94% occupancy rate or 70. But it made a big difference, you know, like you said. You know, we have to be able to have areas that we can adjust our taxes. You know, I think Senator Taves was talking about getting a bunch of Republicans to agree on something when it came to maybe a vote that we took in the caucus. We kind of thought that the adjustment to property tax would be the best thing for our constituents, because we're really up here to work for you. And we don't obviously control all of that, you know, for all the reasons that you want to eventually own your property. You know, you want, me and Representative Wisniewski work on a tax deferral bill, or actually I kind of hung on to his coattail, and we got that across to be able to defer 3 years of taxes to keep people who are on a fixed income in their properties and give them one other alternate opportunity to be able to maintain their property. So the question is, and you're probably wondering if I'm going to answer it, and I believe that we do need to give counties, local municipalities a little bit more opportunity based on the vote of their particular constituency base to think of other methods of taxing. I would be for that. It may not be popular with everybody, but I think we talk about local control all the time. And we only talk about it when we want to give it up, because we don't want to have state control. You know, let's pass it over here. But we should always agree that we should have local control. People in the community, if they want to vote to have a tax like that, they should have the opportunity to do it.
Is there anyone up here who would be opposed to like a bed tax? Where visitors who are renting a room or a bed of sorts would pay a tax?
So Bruce, I'm not going to say that I'm necessarily opposed, but I know that right now, as far as I understand, there is a hotel tax that's in addition to normal sales tax.
It depends on the community, but like the counties
Right.
cannot impose it, and the size of the community.
Right, and then we have one where if you're a recreational destination with so many in lowest population numbers, you can do it. But I know this, I live in Benoit County, I live about 20 miles south of St. Mary's, Idaho. And they were gonna attempt to do this in St. Mary's in the city. And the revolt was actually from the the motel owners. They said, this is nothing more than taxing us. And there was pretty much an outcry. Now, unfortunately, for the people who tried to do it, it killed the city council they all got flipped out this time over this, as well as the city of St. Mary's didn't meet the conditions as a resort destination anyway, so. But, so I don't know on this subject if this is, here's where we're at. I think this is a point we're missing. We can look everywhere to increase taxes. Why aren't we looking to stop spending? If we continue to search for more money, when I do not think that's the answer. And if you look at the states to our west, who have initiated all these programs because they refuse to curb their spending, our neighbor to the west right here is 20 billion in the hole. And they're adding tax after tax after tax. I don't want to play that game, and I don't want to live in that state. So I think we need to look at a way to curb spending over looking at ways for more revenue.
All right, Senator Taves.
The concept of it being a net decrease, it makes it very attractive to me if that's the case. So what makes it attractive, first of all, is that it's shifting taxes to visitors who are using services that they might not be paying for. So infrastructure, police, fire. So there's people coming and using our roads, using our communities, using all the services. And this would be shifting, if it's done right, the burden away from local property owners to visitors. So that's what makes it attractive. What makes it unattractive is if it's just another way for government to grow. So to the degree that we reduce property taxes proportionally to the increase of revenue coming from this, I tend to support it.
Go ahead.
I just have a hard time saying I'm in favor of any tax, whether it's somebody coming to our state or not. My concern is, okay, so we start imposing these taxes on the visitors. We're in Coeur d'Alene specifically a tourist town. What happens when those visitors choose not to visit our town because we tax them too much? So then what happens? You know, so I get having them pay for the infrastructure that they're using when they're here, but I already know that our government tries to maximize that to the fullest extent already. So I'm open, but I just have a hard time imposing a tax on anybody.
Representative Scott, did you want to add something?
I just want to add, since we're on the topic, the grocery tax. It's a really easy sell for marketing for lobby groups to say, oh, repeal the grocery tax, and it sounds great, and we think it's great. We as Idaho citizens get all our money back. We get a tax credit, but it forces everyone from Spokane or out of state to have to pay for groceries when they have to pay that tax. It also is the only tax that illegals are paying when they buy groceries. So keep that in mind, because it's really been pushed on our state by an out-of-state group, and it seems like everyone wants to get rid of a tax. And I've heard like, well, 98% of the people want to get rid of the grocery tax. I said, 98% of the people want to get rid of the property tax too, and the income tax. But that tax is a tax where you get all your money back as a tax credit, but the illegals and the out-of-staters don't get that money back. We keep that to take care of the roads and the local stuff. So just keep that in mind.
Go ahead, sir.
It seems like you're hitting everybody on this, so I figured I don't want you to assume from my silence I'm one way or the other. But I'm not in love with it. I'm not 100% no. But you know, one of my concerns would be, you know, we can't pass a law that only applies to a county that we know won't abuse that power. We have to pass a law for the entire state, and we absolutely know of at least one county that would go wild on that. And although most of their residents are perhaps not Republican, some of them are, and it's got problems because it's got to be a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. And I understand where you're coming from, and I think if there's some argument that if the voters in your area approve it, then that's fine. But again, you're dealing with majority. So I don't know.
Well, you know, there's another question here. Out-of-state buyers are buying homes and turning them into VRBO, iTrip, and Airbnbs. They have been doing this all over. They do not live in Idaho. Recently, the home across from us and behind us have been done this way. And the question is, how can we stop it? And you know, I don't know if there's a way to stop something like that, because that really infringes on people's rights to a degree, although there's zoning issues. But Senator Berkey made the comment that, you know, we want, you know, we represent you, the people. And I think, you know, and to Representative Hawkins' point, for example, the county, 60% of our budget goes towards public safety. Most of the people who stay in our jail are not homeowners. Okay, we have a lot of out-of-state visitors that go through our jail. So, you know, the idea is whether or not the cost should be borne by those who are using the service, in essence. So maybe by a show of hands, just would you be open to a 2% bed tax in your community for visitors that, and by the way that it works for the county is that you cannot increase taxation by more than 8%. 3% by the board. Then there's new construction. And so if this fell under that cap, so you couldn't continue, you couldn't just keep growing government for the sake of it, is this something that the community would be open to by a show of hands, like a 2% bed tax?
So I have
How many are opposed? How many are indifferent?
Yeah. So I have a question with that, because my understanding is that a lot of these people that are in our jails are from Washington State, just over the border, and they wouldn't be staying in our hotels to then pay for their incarcerations.
Well-
So we're actually shifting that tax onto normal people to pay for these bad people who are, and I'm not trying to say that this is a bad thing, but you have to look at the broad picture. And I know that we've been told, because I visited the jail, I talked with the sheriff, and that's who a lot of people in our jails are. They are from Washington, but they're from Spokane, Washington, and they're not staying in our hotels to take care of this tax.
No, but for example, just as an FYI, just for like Shoshone County, they get a lot of, Shoshone County has problems. I mean, they have serious fiscal problems. They can't even afford to send their elected officials to meetings down in Boise. They send just one as opposed to all of them. And they have discovered that when someone goes out and gets lost in the woods, their sheriff's office has to go find them. And so, things like that. But this is a discussion to be continued. It's really more just to gauge where people were with it and just the sentiment within the room. With that said, I'd like to shift over, and I think Senator Economist, you might have something to say on this. The Idaho legislature capped amounts with House Bill 389 for new construction in a city to only 90%, I believe that's also for counties, of new development's total value. And the urban renewal districts, only 80% of the district added value can be taxed by the city. Both of these changes shifted the burden onto existing property owners. Many cities struggled within their budgets to pay for these extra costs. I know not all cities did, but some did. Can HB 389 be revamped so new growth pays for itself? Would you like to start with that?
Well, I don't have a choice. I think you called me out, and I think that's my payback for my last answer. But
I agree with your first, no, I agree with your comment about the cities, and overestimating costs and underestimating.
so House Bill 389, I believe we passed that in 2021. It's quite a while ago. I don't have it memorized. It was also, what I do recall is it was a very long bill. There was a lot to it. Those are two small, well, not small, but not. Those were the only things in there. So picking a few pieces out of the recipe, essentially, with that, there are a number of other components that on net balance was a huge savings for property owners. So some of the rejiggering there was, it wasn't my bill. I did vote for it, as did about every other Republican in the legislature, because it reduced homeowners' taxes. And so, the biggest complainants of House Bill 389 are local governments, cities particularly. We hear from them all the time because it impairs their ability to raise your taxes as much as they would like, which is why it was passed by the legislature. We were trying to protect you from them, basically, because many of them were abusing their ability and power to raise taxes, and particularly during that time of rapid growth. So House Bill 389 was implemented primarily to protect you from local governments who now incessantly complain that they can't tax you to the degree they would like to tax you. And then they couch it in terms of how we've really done something wrong, and growth isn't paying for growth, and so on. And there are perhaps, even we, at the time, I recall conversations that said, look, this is not a perfect piece of legislation, because that doesn't exist, nothing exists. So it's certainly not to say that we couldn't possibly smooth some edges here and there. And I think that that's been an ongoing effort for the last few years. So I can't remember everything that's been done to that effect. But just to be clear, House Bill 389 was a good thing for homeowners. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that? Yeah, okay. I want to shift gears here because there's something that's occurring here locally. Regents is having a problem getting a contract with Kootenai Health. And so these questions are really geared towards, is Obamacare still affecting things in the state? If so, how much? And what can be done to incent more competition in the insurance markets? Because if they're all state regulated pretty much. Anyone want to take that on? Anyone have this as part of their policy platform?
It's the other guy that's not here.
You're holding it up now, so.
The only thing I'll say about the Regents deal with the Kootenai, they're negotiating a price. My guess is the insurance company is saying, we're only gonna pay this, and Kootenai Health is saying, well, we're not gonna accept that. So, so in order to try to get their point across, they made it public, oh, we're gonna drop everybody in their insurance. I think they're still in the negotiations, they haven't dropped us yet. So they're just using this to bully the insurance agency that's probably not paying them as much as they want. And so once, they just turned it public just to see if they could get some more support and bully them. And my guess is the insurance company's trying to keep the costs down. And the hospitals want more and more money. And remember, the hospitals don't pay any property tax in any of their buildings. And they've got buildings everywhere. And they're buying up all kinds of small little healthcare things.
Why is that?
They're not paying property tax.
Why?
They're nonprofit, and that's why they don't.
Yeah. Right. Except the CEOs, right?
Anyone else want to address? Go ahead, Senator Berkey.
I don't want to state the obvious, but the Unaffordable Care Act, Obamacare, has probably been the worst thing for our nation's health care. You talk about things that we could do to change that. We could provide competition throughout the states. That would be changes to the Commerce Clause. But we are being controlled by Big Pharma in our health system when it's $27,000 a year for a family of four for decent insurance outside of the marketplace, outside of Obamacare. We've got problems. And this Regents issue, it was interesting because 2 days before I got home from a conference where Regents was talking about healthcare in the United States, particularly here in Idaho, my wife let me know about the Kootenai situation. And I said, this will be worked out by January. But the bigger thing we need to worry about is it's unsustainable. We should have voted it out during Trump's first term. And there'll be big things coming. But if not, we've got bigger problems coming as well.
All right, thank you. Governor Little vetoed Senate Bill 1210, the Idaho Medical Freedom Act. Is there any hope that this important bill can be reintroduced and passed? Anyone want to take a step?
Well, yeah, he vetoed it, then it was rewritten slightly and passed. We have the best medical freedom bill in the country.
Okay. All right. Is anyone up here in favor of a bill for a two-term limit for the governor?
I'll answer a slightly different question. So, I think we should have term limits for bureaucrats. And I don't think you should be able to serve for 30 years. And the worst bureaucrat I think that we know of is a guy who served for, 40 years. His name is Anthony Fauci. And we need legislators who have institutional knowledge down there because we have to butt heads and do battle with the executive branch. And there's a benefit to having a lot of experience, and we're not getting rich doing this job. It's pretty much a ministry for most of us. So I would be against term limits. You have the opportunity for term limits when you go to the ballot box.
Go ahead.
Bruce, would you re-ask the question?
Well, would anyone up here be in favor of term limits for the governor? 2 terms.
Yes.
the current
Executive
governor?
branch.
Well, I'm sure that is the motivation for the question. So, okay, would any of you support a bill to stop the state from collecting teacher union dues?
So in 2024, I ran a bill to do that, and we had on the floor of the House quite a bit of pushback. Shocked some people who thought it would be an easy pass. This year, I think Representative Beiswinger and I'm not sure who else tried again. It will come again. The unions have a grip that they should not have in the state of Idaho. And just so everybody knows, that what basically happens is that the state is in control of collecting the dues. It's deducted from payroll. And in some cities, like in the city of Boise, in that school district, they actually give a pay supplement to cover union dues. So this is something that is coming again. And this is, look, back to the folks. I mean, you've elected us, you've sent us there. But if you go home and that's all you do, we lose, right? We lose. We need your help. I mean, there's a guy in the room that talked me into this slightly a long time ago, Dick Harwood.
Dick who?
Anyway, didn't talk me into this, but hey, you want to be a precinct? That's where it starts. But without the folks involved, without you guys writing letters and sending emails, not form emails, not where there's 400 of you with the same email, individual emails. When we know stuff is coming for like this, that's what gets traction, and you send it to everybody. That's what gets traction. Because if it's just 5 or 6 of us up here, not that we're pretty much all on the same page, but you know, in a certain committee, if there's only a couple of us, and the people aren't engaged, and the other side sees they can disregard this, that's what they do. So it takes the people in our communities to get involved more than just the 15 seconds in the voting booth. And you're involved because you're here. But you need to get your neighbors involved and the people down the street.
Thank you, Senator Davis. And by the way, we're at 11:41, so I'd like to give you all about a minute and a half for closing statements. So we'll wrap it up at about 1:15.
Yes, I'm working on that bill. I'll be sponsoring it. I think we have a really good strategy to deal with the teachers' unions. It's really insidious. My grandmother was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. There's a lot of good teachers out there, but the teachers' unions are lobbying against our values. And they pour money and lobbyists into our state to move us the wrong direction. So I'm really excited that I think we have a really good chance of getting this across the finish line this year.
Thank you. We'll just start getting into some quick answers on some of these questions, since we're running out of time. Will Idaho schools be required to stop teaching DEI or transgender ideology?
So this year we passed House Bill 352. It's one of the two. It was broken into two. So this bill says that it is against the law for anyone in K through 12 to instruct in gender identity or sexual orientation. But, and I'll take responsibility, there was a line left in that bill from when it was a single bill and it got broken in half, because at first we were only going to do it K through 3rd grade. And then we changed it to K through 12. When it came back from LSO, we did not catch it. So further down in the sentence, it says, or age appropriate according to state standards. Well, if the state standard is you can't do it, you can't do it. We have 60% of the school districts that are ignoring the bill, and some have outright said, well, this little line's brought enough confusion, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. So we're going to fix that, but it is already illegal in the state of Idaho.
Go ahead.
Just to add to that really quickly, Senate Bill 1198 dealt with this in the higher education realm. And I'd say we have one of the strongest regulations against DEI in our higher education in the country now.
Good.
Real quick, Senator Chase. You had suggested deregulation related to housing and small homes, creating more density. What kind of, can you elaborate on that, the deregulation that you might be suggesting?
Certainly. So what sickens me is somehow we're okay with density going vertically, but we're not okay with density horizontally that would allow homeownership. So my thought is that we should make a way for smaller homes to be built, starter homes, and they could be at, actually I worked on a development myself, it's kind of in the past now, but that would have been 20 units, they would have been around $300,000, and it could have allowed people to buy their first home, and it also could have allowed people who are downsizing to go to an affordable home, and that opens up inventory for people who are moving back, who are growing their families. So I really think that there has to be some action to make it more possible for us to have home ownership in our community.
Thank you. Thank you to the audience for providing so many questions. I very much appreciate it. We couldn't get to every one of them. Some of them were a little more specific to instances as opposed to broader statewide policies. I hope that all of you can stick around for a couple of minutes to answer any of these questions for folks. Right now, it's quarter to noon already. Oh, it's amazing how fast the time flies when you're having so much fun up here. So 90 seconds, minute and a half, if you could, maybe some closing statements. We'll start with you, Senator Berkey.
Like Representative Hawkins said, it takes you. I think our last election here in the county was 28% participation. We've got to do a little bit better than that. You know, we're here to help you, help us. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you for being engaged and wanting to know what's going on. 90 seconds, I just want to let you know, we're going to be up against it a little bit in the JFAC, the Appropriations Committee, and the Senate Finance Committee. We've got the 3% holdback. We've got providers taking a 4% cut through Medicaid. We've got some providers out there that deal with people in their homes, certified family homes, people that come in and take care of maybe someone's disabled mother. And these are the people that get paid the less. And they get paid pips. You know, you can work at McDonald's and get paid more. We need to look at this stuff holistically. When we're doing this budget, it's going to be tough. Just know we're doing our best. We need to hear from you. What's important to you? And I know somebody that's maybe has a disabled mother or father living with them. That those services are important. We need to hear that because we're going to have some scraps, if anything. Just be thinking of us. Pray for us. Pray for this country, and keep the fight. Thank you.
I think one of the important issues that we have to face is education of our youth. If we look at the indoctrination, and I'll use that word purposefully, I've seen studies that said up to 60–70% of students that are in college think that socialism is okay. This is troubling. One more generation and we are down the tubes. Now, to sort of offset that, there was a bill that was passed just this session that helped emphasize the teaching in civics of the importance of Western civilization on the founding of our country and the current operations of our country. If we're not giving the students a glimpse of how our country was founded, how the founding fathers studied all the previous societies and government systems, how can we expect them to understand where we are, where we have come from, where we need to go? We have bred into our whole cultural system a dependence on government. Right now, the state of Idaho spends, 40% of our budget comes from the federal government. And I keep hearing some of my acquaintances, I won't call my friends, who think that they're conservative saying, well, we've just applied for a federal grant of $10 million to handle this because we can't afford it at the state level. All we're doing is taxing somebody else. Idaho is a welfare state. We donate a certain amount to the federal government through our taxes, and we receive more and benefit from that. In my generation, my parents' generation, it was shameful to be on the public dole unless you absolutely needed to be for health reasons or economic reasons. You got laid off or your company went bankrupt or so forth. Now it's encouraged. What can I do the least to get the most benefits? So we've got to get this training to our students, and this Western civilization training that we have just instituted is going to go a long ways towards that. Thank you.
I'd echo Tony's concept that the education system is a major focus. I love that we passed the education tax credit this last session, and I think that's going to open up the door for a lot of students that were stuck in an unhealthy situation to exit that, and I'd like to see that broadened in the future. The teachers' unions aren't going to like that, but if the teachers' unions don't like it, usually it's at the top of my agenda. So I want to thank you all for coming out. There was a question about term limits. I can say that maybe there's a place for term limits, but really what we need is engaged citizens. Yeah. Term limits are a crutch. They're a crutch for apathy. And the fact that you came out here and spent the time with us today, I think, is a testament to our community, and I'd love to see more of it. So bring your neighbors next time. Thank you.
We've talked about in the budgets this year, it's going to be a crunch, and being on the appropriations committee, I'm going to be in the middle of it. The big thing that we have to remember is we want all these tax cuts, but you have to decide which programs we're going to cut as well. And that's the big focus this year, is going to decide which programs we're going to have to trim back or cut. I'm all for tax cuts. We need to reduce spending as well. It's not just, I really feel it's important that you get to decide where your money goes versus the government deciding where your money goes. So that's just going to be a big focus this session for me, is to, and I appreciate your feedback. If you know of a program that can be pulled back, please share it with us so that we can put eyes on it and investigate it and look at it and see if that isn't something we can do.
It's easy to get pessimistic about the state of the world and the state of our state and our local communities, because Commissioner Matari here has brought up all these questions that you people have given us of all these problems that we need to solve and all these things that are going on, and everything is going in a handbasket. But you know what? I remain optimistic because I look at the engagement that we're seeing here. This is our third or fourth town hall this year, and we're just about close to capacity here. You people are concerned about what's going on, and I think we are making progress. I have talked many times about Idaho being the line in the sand for freedom. And this is where we make our final defense of what this republic is supposed to be, and I think we've done a good job of doing that. I think we have defended the concept of freedom, the concept of small government, the concept of lower taxes, and I consider it a great honor to be up here working for you people with this fantastic group of legislators that we have in North Idaho. So I am very optimistic about the future. And I hope to see you continually engaged and pushing us in the right direction, and that we hopefully will do the right job for you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate it. We're this close to Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday with your families, and I know we are, and I really appreciate y'all coming out. We all do. The only thing that kind of came to mind as far as a closing remark would go, for me, would go, since I've been in, and this will be my 6th session coming up, I believe we've cut taxes every one of those years in some form or fashion. And I'm proud of that, and I know the rest of us have been here that period of time, or part of it, are all proud of that as well. And we're going to continue to try and help you on that front. And one of those things that we've done, and I'm hearing more and more about House Bill 389, and not just today, I'm not trying to pick Bruce and all, but it's coming up because he's hearing about it too. That's not going to go away. We care about you. What we do with those types of things is we try to insert ourselves between you and cities in some circumstances and taxing districts because we think they're taking advantage of you when they shouldn't be. And there's going to be pains with that, management for the cities and so on. But I just don't want anybody to misunderstand where our motivations lie, and they are completely to do the right thing for you. So thanks so much again for coming, and have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. A few things that probably weren't mentioned that I think need to be mentioned is there's a huge push by big corporations for immunity in this state. Big pharma, big ag, they're trying to get immunity for the chemicals that they've done. And we have actually the power companies want immunities when they cause fires or when their power lines cause fires. And so that all puts the burden back on the individual property taxpayers. So something to keep in mind. There's lots of problems in government, but we are making progress, as was mentioned. This was the first year I've seen in 11 years that we've had a conservative enough body to actually get some real wins for the people. And I will have that same body again this year, which was an election year. I think one of the big issues we're seeing is the moral decay across the country. And we can try to fix it by legislation, like we passed the flag bill, right? You can't fly the GBTLQ flag, but government ignores it. Or we pass a bill that says you can't teach DEI, and the schools ignore it. There's a moral decay in our country, and no matter how many bills we pass, God's the only fix for that. And so, and we just do what we can do and know He's in complete control and complete charge of what's going to happen and where we're headed as a country and as a world. The only last thing I'd say is if you don't get my Substack, please go to substack.com, and it's repheatherscott.com, or find me on X, and I will keep you informed. And never email me. I get way too many emails. Just call me. Call me. No emails.
Okay, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for coming out. I heard a statistic about 2 years ago that of the last 60 judges, now this is a 2-year-old statistic, 58 Idaho judges, last 58 of them retired significantly early enough to create a vacancy so that vacancy had to be filled by appointment. And when a judgeship is filled by appointment, it's pretty much the Judicial Council and the Idaho Bar Association that picks the judges that are considered for that appointment. And so once a judge is an incumbent, then they're virtually guaranteed to be reelected. So the Idaho Constitution says that the people elect our judges, but that's not what's happening. They figured out a workaround. So that's an issue I'm going to be bringing back. And it's also a testimony that the legislative branch, who's connected to the people most directly, is not really in charge. So we need to find ways as a legislative branch to more assert our authority, and that's another issue I'll be working on. So thank you all again for coming.
So we've talked a little bit about schools and about teachers' unions, and even if we are successful with getting this dues collection by the state out, we will still have teachers' unions. And right now, there's an organization running around the state saying, Save Our Schools. They've had several of our photos up here, up on the wall with big red X's through them. And we've mentioned that this is an election year. According to them, we've harmed education greater than Idaho has ever been harmed. And the reason that they believe that is because we have pushed toward this. Article 9, Section 1 of the Constitution that deals with education. I've read this to you before. The stability of a Republican form of government depending mainly upon the intelligence of the people, it shall be the duty of the Idaho legislature to establish. And it goes on to talk about what we're going to establish for free common schools. Go to the high school kids and ask them what form of government they think we have or that we should have. We've already heard from up here that people think socialism and communism is okay. If our children are not learning how to maintain a republic, we have failed. And I'll tell you, school to school to school, we have failed. I visited Kootenai Classical Academy. It's one of the few schools that is actually producing this kind of student. So this is what we need to push back on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all. Just a couple of closing remarks here. First of all, thank you to all of you who came out today. It's the weekend. There's lots of other things you could be doing, but you're here to listen to our legislators talk about the issues that are important to us in this state. It's your state, they're your legislators, and thank you for being here. As a county commissioner, I can tell you, we've had some very important meetings where so few people show up. And you kind of scratch your head and ask, where is everyone? These important issues. So you're here, and thank you. I also want to thank the legislators, but I also want to say that there's one word that comes to mind to describe all of you on the stage. And to me, that word is liberty. That all of you are thinking about liberty when it comes to your decisions and the kind of bills that you're putting forth. So thank you very much. And then there's one last group that I really want to give a big thank you to, and that is the Central Committee. The Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, because they are the ones that do the work. And I have to tell you, there are a few people there that work very hard, put in a lot of time. I believe every person on the stage has gotten a nod from the Central Committee. They look for genuine, real, conservative candidates. They get behind them, and they get them into office. And that's what we're all about. That's what you're about. And I want everyone here to just give them a big round too. And with that said, thank you very much. You all enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.